All right, welcome. So, this is a quick video on my top 10 tips for blood sugar balance in case you're interested. And just so you know, a quick disclaimer, of course, I'm not your provider. This is just educational. So, um, be cautious because lifestyle really works. And if you're on medication, then you have to monitor in a good way and make sure that you don't take too much medicine to get hypoglycemic or low blood sugar, because that can be dangerous. So make sure you know you and monitor carefully. All right, so let's move on to tip number one. All right, so tip number one is staying hydrated. And I'm going to try not to make this video too technical, more just throwing out the tips, and then more videos will come and we'll have more time to learn. But rough estimate of our goal of intake of water should be about half your body weight in ounces. So if you're 200 pounds, that would mean 100 ounces of water. And much more than that, I would be cautious because there is such a thing as overhydration. But most of us are underhydrating. And the best time to drink would be between meals, actually, not with a meal, because it's diluting your stomach acid and that impairs digestion. And that leads to a whole host of issues. So, rough cutoff would be about half an hour before a meal. Usually, if I know I'm eating at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm going to really keep an eye on the clock. Like, oh yeah, it's 12:30. I'm going to drink a lot of water, and so that's through before I eat. Adding electrolytes is a great idea too, and I will show you some great sources of that if you would like. Simply adding some Celtic salt or lemon, essential oils, a little stevia or monk fruit if you're bored of water can be tips to get more hydration. All right, moving on. Tip number two is eating more fiber. Now, this one I cannot underestimate. Fiber is only found in plant foods, so none of the animal foods have fiber. And so when you think about it, eggs, fish, milk, yogurts, sometimes we think of those as health foods, but actually, really steering more towards plants can be very helpful in blood sugar balance and um, diabetes because fiber helps slow down and regulate your blood sugars. Whole foods. So when you think about orange juice versus oranges, which one would have fiber? The orange. And white rice versus brown or black rice, of course, the whole grain rice. Great sources of fiber. You see a couple here on the picture. The chia seeds on the left, kind of above my head, those are amazing. And I usually start people off with that, or the flax seeds, which unfortunately didn't make it in this picture, but flax seeds are the little brown seeds. And grinding those, keeping it in the fridge because they're a healthy fat that's fragile. Keep it in the fridge when you grind the flax. Those are really, really great just for a starting point. If you're not used to eating a lot of plants in your diet, I would say starting with chia and flax, maybe a tablespoon a day, you can put in water, or you can make chia seed pudding. We'll talk about recipes later, and I'll attach a guide for you on eating more fiber. But this is a key point. Lentils, I don't want to miss. It's kind of hard to see, but there's some red lentils in the picture. Lentils and beans are excellent sources of fiber and really helpful for blood sugar balance. All right, so enough said. You get the idea, but fiber is so important, and no animal foods have fiber. Moving on. Moving after meals. So if you know that insulin is the key that unlocks the door in the cell to let glucose inside instead of being in the bloodstream, you'll know that movement or muscles, when we are exercising, it actually doesn't require the key. It's like a free pass. So any sort of gentle does not, and it should not be a vigorous exercise after eating, but just a gentle walk, even for 5 or 10 minutes, can really help allow the sugar or the glucose to get inside your cells rather than sitting around in the bloodstream where it's doing some damage. So any sort of movement after a meal is really, really great. All right, so tip number 4, good sleep starts in the morning. So we sometimes think, oh, it's bedtime, and we expect our body to shut off and go to sleep. And if you're anything like me, but that doesn't work. I think we're probably similar. We're not designed to have this instant shut off. It's more that the body has to get signals and be cued into sleep. So what would that be? That would be things like the sleep hygiene tips you might have heard of. dimming the lights, quitting the electronics at least an hour before bed. Things I like to do is I love my essential oil blends, and there's one that I love called Serenity, and I put that one on in the evening in the bedroom. I do a really nice sleep yoga. I um, I have a kind of a habit of just lowering the lights and turning on a lamp, just things that cue my brain that it's time or almost time to sleep. I also like to take a walk. So I have a signal to my body that it's time to shut down my electronics at a certain time, about an hour and a half before hour. Um, Not eating at least 3 hours before bedtime is also really helpful. So I'm telling you the standard, and sometimes it takes adjustment and thinking how it's going to fit in your lifestyle, especially if work, is close to bed, and it gets tricky. I know. So this is the ideal, and maybe you're going to start with some other tips before this one, but this is so important because sleep is literally our time to reset, and signs of poor sleep and blood sugar imbalance would be things like sugar cravings, increased hunger. I'm reading off a list here: weight gain, difficulty losing weight. And part of that is because when we sleep, we're resetting all of our systems and our hormone balance. And I don't know also about you, but you might have experienced a poor night's sleep, and then you have like you're craving the worst unhealthy food in the morning. And I've noticed that in my body, that when I eat late, get poor sleep, then I just crave all the worst things and I'm lazy the next day. So it's a real thing and something to really pay attention to that may help you a lot. Let's move on. Okay, tip number 5: optimizing your vitamin D levels. Now, this is sometimes, no, not sometimes, often overlooked, unfortunately. Every time you get a wellness visit with your primary care, please ask for your vitamin D to be checked, because every year we should know our levels. Most of us are low, and it's so easy to fix and so important because there's almost, I can't think of really anything that it doesn't affect, including your weight and your blood sugar levels, your mood. It is a hormone, technically. So, any hormone, just like a domino effect, is going to cascade and affect other hormones. So, I need to find this study, but I know it was quoted recently that just supplementing, I believe it was 7,000 international units of vitamin D with no other changes, um, made people lose weight. Literally, just correcting that vitamin D. So, symptoms of vitamin D deficiency, reading off my list: fatigue, depression, muscle weakness, um, and of course, getting sick a lot because it's very important for your immune system. So optimal levels would be, some people say 30 is enough. That's not near enough. So optimal would be about 70 to 80 or more. Um, there is probably an upper limit. I would say 70 is really great. Um, yeah. And so sunlight, if you can get sunlight, that's wonderful. But despite that, we still need supplements many times. So don't be afraid of a supplement. If you need to increase your levels, 5,000 international units for a few months might be necessary, and there's other ways to do it, but 5,000 will increase and 2,000 will usually maintain levels. So also don't want to overlook, but vitamin D3 with K2, it's another fat soluble vitamin. The combination of that's also really important because it helps direct um, calcium to be deposited into the bone instead of your soft tissue, which can lead to calcified arteries or plaques in that development. So we want calcium in the right place. That's kind of a side point, but that's one of the reasons why we don't want to supplement calcium by itself. Um, we need proper educated supplementation. So I will be linking in the description a link to Fullscript, where you can see some of my good list of my recommendations for glucose support, and vitamin D with K2 is one of them. Okay, moving on. So, tip number 6: ditching the plastic. Now, we cannot avoid plastic, it's everywhere and different chemicals, but we can do our best. And that's what I say with this. Plastic is an endocrine disruptor, and that simply means endocrine is hormone. So, it's a hormone disruptor. Many times they block Um, they mimic estrogen, so you can see effects like that. It's really bad. If you just do a quick search, you'll learn a lot about it. I'm not going to go into details, but just encourage you to get glass and stainless steel. It's really the best thing. Glass is the best I know, and avoid the Teflons, the plastics, the chemicals as much as you possibly can to help your body. It really overwhelms it, and it does devastate it. So, symptoms of exposure to too much plastic: weight gain, irregular periods, low energy, mood swings. Um, yeah, so really just steer clear as much as you can. Okay, tip number 7: choosing fats that don't make you fat. Okay, so oils. And this has to do with our last point because fat literally holds toxins. And so when you lose weight, you are shedding toxins. That's partly why you need to be able to poop, to pee, and to sweat. Make sure all your detox routes are available to you, or else sometimes people feel really sick if they don't fix constipation before they're getting healthy. Uh, so, where was I? So, again, like we just talked about plastics. So, when we eat a lot of plastics, and especially when fat is stored in plastic, that's a kind of a double whammy because it's literally like absorbing. Um, say you bought an oil in plastic, really really bad, double whammy problem because the plastic goes into fat, and in your body, your fat stores toxins as well. Hopefully that made sense. So, what are the best oils and fats? Well, what you see in the picture: olives, avocados, nuts, and seeds are very, very good. I was kind of getting emphasizing oils. So, in this particular tip, so olive, avocado, and coconut oil are the only ones I use. They're and the reason this is important is because all of our cells are made of fat, and the membrane on the outside is literally, it's called the phospholipid bilayer. And if you learned that in chemistry, great. Um, all it is kind of a fancy wall, right? And all of our cells have doors and little things where those hormones dock and change the activities of our cells, right? So when that wall or that membrane is dysfunctional, your cell is dysfunctional. And what is it made of? It's made of fats. So we really, really need the fats and balance to be good. And this isn't a lecture on just fat, but again, those are the oils, and making sure you get a lot of the omega-3 and anti-inflammatory fats from flax, hemp, chia, walnuts. And if you can find a really good source of cold water fish, low on the food chain, so there's not mercury, fish is good too. Okay, next. So, tip number 8: supplement to support. So, supplements can be extremely helpful, partly because our food is lacking in the nutrients it used to have because the soil is messed up, and it can go, we can go back and back and think of all the problems. But what do we do now? Well, we do our best, and eating organic helps and all that. But sometimes our bodies literally have mutations where we need extra help to make a process happen in the body, some biochemical process. And sometimes we want extra support because we got ourselves in a mess, say it's diabetes or prediabetes or something like that. And we need a little extra support to get out of that mess. So I think of it as two ways. Sometimes it's kind of a long-term thing where your body literally needs more of something like vitamin D or vitamin B complex. Future videos will tell you more. But also, in this situation, there are certain things that can really, really stabilize your blood glucose and help your body metabolize and use it rather than it floating around in the blood like we were talking about. So, let me tell you about a couple here, and you will see these in a link below in the description. I put a link to my Fullscript account where there's a list you'll find called blood glucose support, or blood sugar support, something like that. And you'll see the whole list, and you can read about them and learn more. But you'll see things with ingredients like Gymnema sylvester, and that is actually an herb that has actually been studied to help your pancreas, which makes insulin, regenerate some of those beta cells so it functions a lot better and can make insulin. There is also cinnamon, which you might have heard of, which also helps blood sugar metabolism. Things like magnesium. Of course, we already talked about vitamin D, electrolytes. Berberine is a big one, and alpha lipoic acid. So you can learn about these. I could probably talk a whole video on that, so we'll move. But tip number 9. Actually, you know what? Really quick before I move on, let me just finish this supplement topic. That you do have to be careful with those, because sometimes, especially the glucose supreme herbal you'll see on the list, that can be so effective that you might get hypoglycemic. So just cautiously and excitedly be careful that when you use some of those herbal supplements, it can have really big effects on your blood glucose. Okay, so tip number 9, prioritize stress management. And somehow, I don't know how, but the picture with the cookie got in here. So don't do that. You can see that. I had another one, but I don't know where it went. It's a different picture. So anyway, it's okay. Prioritize stress management. Yeah, I almost hate it when people say that, because it's easier said than done. But it is so important, and just taking a little time, just if you can spare 5 minutes even to do breathing. When you exhale longer than your inhale, you're stimulating the parasympathetic nervous system, which is your vagus nerve, which stimulates your whole body healing. It's the rest and digest phase. You might have heard of fight or flight, and rest and digest and heal and detox is the other name. That's where all the good stuff happens. So when we're stressed, we're literally inactivating the healing and restorative processes your body needs to go through to be healthy and well. And so, yeah, journaling, breathing, just a walk without your phone and distractions, some stretching and yoga and different things can just totally change the course of your night too. If you can do a little bit before you wind, as part of your wind down routine, that really sets the stage for good sleep, and it all ties together. So yeah, it's important. And then tip number 10, last one, you might be surprised, is a simple, kind of just a phrase, but building a lasting lifestyle and trusting the process. So remembering that this is not a quick fix, it's like a plant, like the picture shows here. You are on a journey, and this is not about a diet, but building something that's going to be stand the test of time, and that you can envision yourself continuing. So it's okay to be slow. It's so much better to be slow and steady than quick and then rebound into a relapse, right? So just remembering you're on a journey and trusting the process as well as your body. And I'm big on believing in intelligent design, and that your body is truly designed miraculously, and it's meant to heal itself by the innate power and 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 that God gave it, I believe. And so when we discard what is harming and provide what heals and support the body to do what it's designed to do, that's where I believe healing is. And so I was going to leave you with that, number 10. And thank you again for listening. I hope it was helpful. And remember to look in the description if you want some of the tips. I'm going to link a link to my website where you can get my PDF cookbook. Also the Fullscript, the link to the supplements that can be very, very helpful. And just stay tuned for future things that might help you in meal plans, and more is coming all the time. So, and feel free to leave me a comment of what would help you. I'll try to make it happen. All right. Take care.